Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, May 30th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 93 days, the game against Michigan in 184 days. On yesterday's show, we talked all about the quarterbacks that Ohio State was going to be facing during the regular season, going through some of the more talented ones that Ohio State's going to face and what that might look like on the schedule. But a whole bunch of those guys were transfers. So that got me thinking, hey, you know what? A whole bunch of quarterbacks transferred. And during week one in the fall, you're going to turn on your TV and you're going to go, wait, what is he doing there? He plays for a team 3,000 miles away. So we're just going to give you a little cheat sheet on where some of the top quarterbacks in the nation transferred this year. And we're doing it with our buddy Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, we're just going to go straight down the list of the top transfer quarterbacks according to 247. This is not my list. This is theirs. This is based a little bit, as we talked about on one of the shows earlier this week, the Buckeye Weekly Show. This is based a little bit on potential, so it's not necessarily the biggest impact players this year. Some of these guys might not even be starting, but some big names on here, some familiar names in new places. So we're going to be putting Tony's knowledge to the test. The first two, though, are freebies. He already knows that Julian Sayin went from Alabama to Ohio State. He already knows that Aiden Childs went from Oregon State to Michigan State because he talked about it on yesterday's show. So, Tony, we're going to start with number 3, another name that's going to be familiar to Ohio State fans from recruiting. A name that is familiar to Chip Kelly, Ohio State's offensive coordinator, because he was Chip Kelly's quarterback last year. Dante Moore, former UCLA quarterback. Tony, where is Dante Moore going to be playing his college football this fall?
Before I answer that, I will say I am starting out 2 for 2 because I do get credit for the first two. I don't, when we do the math on this, we figure out the average on all of this. I started out 2 for 2 just because you give me first base doesn't mean I'm not taking that total base. So 2 for 2. I will go 3 for 3 now, Tom, and tell you that Dante Moore is at Oregon, where he has decided he will gladly sit for a year behind Dillon Gabriel and go ahead and then be the next guy coming up, which I think was a pretty big boon for Oregon to be able to do that.
Yeah, that is a huge deal for Oregon because, Dillon Gabriel, we talked about this on the show yesterday. Dillon Gabriel is potentially a national championship caliber winning quarterback for them this year, depending on how good the supporting cast is. For to be able to bring in Dante Moore, give him a year to learn, a year to develop, that puts them potentially in that kind of place in 2025 as well. So yes, there we go, Tony. 1 for 1, as you said. All right.
3 Next for up, 3.
We're going to give you another one that this is kind of on a tee for you because this is one that Ohio State was very involved with in the transfer portal. A lot of conversations didn't end up happening. Cam Ward, Tony, went from Wazoo to which program?
He went from Wazoo to the Wazoo of the ACC, Miami. Rainy in both places, hard to get to. Nobody likes being there. So yes, he is at Miami, where the costs of attendance and the cost of signing him all very high.
Yes, Coral Gables, famously the Palouse of South Florida. Yes, there it is, Tony. Still batting 1,000. Well done. All right, now let's move on to the SEC. Former Georgia quarterback Brock Vandagriff. Do you know where Brock Vandagriff is going to be playing his football this fall?
I thought you were going to say former Georgia quarterback JT Daniels, and I was going to be like, oh gosh, I need the map of the strings and the thumbtacks.
Former Georgia quarterback JT Daniels has retired from football due to concussions, but he went from USC to Georgia to West Virginia to Rice, and then retired. Yes, so Brock Vandagriff now. Enough stalling.
I believe he's at Kentucky now. Is that correct? He has gone to Kentucky and will play there and do well and become the next Will Levis and really bring Kentucky from the 7-win program that we've known them to the 7.5-win program that they're striving to become. So Kentucky, Tom, correct?
That is correct. I will remind you that Kentucky, much like the Big Ten West teams are no longer in the Big Ten West, the Kentucky Wildcats are no longer in the SEC East. So that's going to probably hurt their chances of going from 7 wins to 7.5 wins this year. But we will see. We will see how that all goes for him. Next up, Tony, there's been a lot of talk about Texas quarterbacks this offseason. Quinn Ewers, cover athlete for EA Sports. Arch Manning, not playing in EA Sports. Where is Malik Murphy going to be playing or not playing this fall? Former Texas quarterback.
Oh, man. I used to know this one time. I think this is going to be the first one. I know he went. I did not like the premise of the show when you brought it up to me. He went somewhere pretty significant, but it's not coming to me. Malik Murphy. Did he go out? Is it USC?
No, he is playing, however, in a city where they have played the Rose Bowl before. So that's similar to USC, but instead of Los Angeles, California, he's playing in Durham, North Carolina, where they held the Rose Bowl one time during World War II. He is playing for the Duke Blue Devils. Tony, you have brought great shame to the program. Next up, I'm going to let you bounce back with a freebie. Will Howard went from Kansas State to Ohio State. However, speaking of Duke, Tony, former Duke quarterback Riley Leonard. Where is Riley Leonard transferring from Duke to?
Well, Tom, Riley Leonard is transferring from Duke, and in the process of this transfer, his Heisman Trophy is already being etched as he is getting ready to win it, just as Sam Hartman did, a Notre Dame repeat, and will be able to hoist the trophy as not only a Heisman Trophy winner, but a national title winner when he is throwing and running and doing all kinds of exciting plays for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Unless, of course, he gets hurt in like game 3, like normal, and then just has to struggle through the entire season. But when he is healthy, when he was healthy at Duke, he was fun to watch because he has to do all of these different things to help Duke win. And he would do whatever he could to help them win. Doesn't necessarily need to play that same way at North Carolina or at Notre Dame, but you can't keep him from playing that way because that's just how he is. So I like him better than Sam Hartman because he's just he's a crazy dude and will do whatever it takes. And so I'm going to say Notre Dame. Tom, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, boy, it would have been really embarrassing had you talked for like 4 minutes about Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, and it's like, nope, actually, he transferred to Akron. I don't know how you missed that one, but I'm sure all the same things you said about Notre Dame will apply to Akron, so it's fine. Yes, he is. Riley Leonard is, in fact, going from Duke to Notre Dame. Next up, Tony, former Ohio State receiver Austin Mack. No, also an unrelated quarterback named Austin Mack, leaving the University of Washington to transfer to where?
Transferring to Alabama to be with his former head coach, Kalen DeBoer, and being the guy there perhaps next year when Jalen Milroe finally goes. So, yes, that was somebody that Kalen DeBoer brought over with them. I know highly thought of in Washington. Now waiting in the wings, kind of like Dante Moore.
All of that is correct. That felt like an easy one. Anytime you're following your coach, that's probably, I'm going to give you half credit for that one because that was a little easy. This next one, I'm going to give you half credit, maybe not even half credit for this one because we just did a show about this guy about a week ago, Jaden Rashada. He is leaving Arizona State University to go where?
To court. No, he is.
I give you full credit for that one.
He is at Georgia now, where he will, compete for the future of that program down the road. But yes, that was another one where it's like, oh yeah, he's at Georgia. Crazy.
He is at Georgia. He is suing Florida head coach Billy Napier for stuff related to NIL, so he will be in civil court for that. He will probably be in traffic court eventually because that's how these things tend to go in Athens. But that's okay. So far, Jaden Rashada just a Georgia Bulldog and just in the civil side of the courthouse down there. Next up, Tony, DeQuan Finn. This is a name that you may know. Toledo quarterback, very, very successful Toledo quarterback, led the Rockets to MAC championships. Now, where is he headed now?
I'm looking forward to watching him step up from Toledo to Baylor, where he will be playing for the Bears.
I thought you might miss this one. This is one that I had somehow missed and did not remember hearing.
No, because this is what I'm looking forward to seeing just how he can do, because he's fun to watch, and will it translate to a larger level of football? And can Baylor kick it back up a notch offensively? Because if they can, he's the guy that can really light some things up if they choose to do that rather than maybe being more conservative. So I'm just interested in watching how he does this year. So yeah, he's a guy that I've had my eye on.
All right. Yes, that is correct. That was one I had somehow missed during the transfer portal window when people were flying around fast and furious earlier in the year. One we talked about in yesterday's show, Dylan Gabriel. We actually talked about him earlier on this show as well. Oklahoma to Oregon. You know that one. Tony, how about DJ Uiagalelei? He started his career at Clemson. Then he went to Oregon State. And then now the second Oregon State quarterback on this list to be transferring out. Where is he headed this year?
It's interesting because DJ Uiagalelei signed with the best program in the ACC when he signed there. He has done that again by transferring to the best program in the ACC now, which is Florida State, where they're putting all of their hopes and dreams in him, which I think you're talking about more of a game manager, so you have to have the pieces around him. Florida State is not going to have the same pieces around him that they had for Jordan Travis last year. But as we just talked recently on a Buckeye Weekly episode, there's a college football magazine out there putting Florida State in the playoffs. So clearly they have faith in DJ. And so I believe, Tom, he is a Seminole.
He is a Seminole. And one of the nice things about being in the ACC is someone from the ACC is going to the college football playoff. Might as well be Florida State. And Florida State taking transfers, not something that everyone in the ACC can say. So yes, that might be helping them get there. Speaking from one quarterback transferring out from an OSU to another, Kyle McCord transferred from Ohio State to Syracuse. Tony knew that one already. How about this one, Tony? Malachi Nelson, speaking of former five-star quarterbacks, he left USC. Where is Malachi Nelson going now?
I'm going to tell you, I do not know this one, Tom. So I'm going to have to take a stab. I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it out west. As I try to read your reaction, but I'm not seeing anything. You're not giving me anything there. UNLV.
Oh, Tony, I'm delighted to tell you that you blew it. Would you like to take another guess?
No, I'm going to stick with UNLV.
Tony, how about Boise State?
That's right. I saw that the other day.
The blue. Yeah. Malachi Nelson going to Boise State. That's another program that's sort of in an interesting spot where there is a non-power team that's going to get a berth to the college football playoff. Boise State has definitely taken a step back the last couple of years after the departure of Brian Harsin. The Andy Avalos thing did not work at all. They've had a new head coach this year. You've got a new quarterback this year in Malachi Nelson. We'll see how that goes. It would kind of be fun to have Boise State in the CFP at some point. I don't think that 12 seed is going to do all that well all that often, but I feel like we saw what Liberty was going to do against a pretty good team last year in the Fiesta Bowl against Oregon. I don't know that I need to see that again. I would like to see someone else, please, and thank you. Next up, Will Rogers. Will Rogers transferred from Mississippi State to where, Tony?
I believe he transferred up to Washington, and he was one of the top guys in the free agent pool. One of the many Wills that were out there, and kind of the second of the Wills, but a ton of production in his time at Mississippi State, but took a step back with the passing of Mike Leach. Statistically, now you try to go and pick that back up at Washington and see if he can bring that production back up. Tom, am I correct? Is that Washington?
You are correct. That is Washington. Yes, this is another one where we had one guy going out earlier, one guy coming in now. It's just everyone sort of takes one step to the left. Next up, another one of those. We talked earlier about Cam Ward going to Miami. Tony, Tyler Van Dyke, former Miami quarterback. Where is he on the move to?
He is currently at Wisconsin battling to be the starting quarterback for Luke Fickell and the Badgers, which is pretty crazy considering he was a 3-year starter at Miami. Had a really good year in 2021, but has not been able to replicate that. So much hype going into 2022, never materialized. So we'll see. I just wonder how much longer Luke Fickell can continue to try to build this program with quarterbacks from outside of Wisconsin, but also how can you keep your Wisconsin quarterbacks if, one, if they're actually good, somebody else is going to want them. Two, if they're no good, then do you want them? So really, this is probably the only way they can just try to go from a 6 or 7 win team to we made it to 9 and now we can move from here. So Wisconsin, Tom, final answer.
He is going to Wisconsin. Maybe the most interesting climatic move of the season. You got a quarterback going from Washington State to Miami, and a quarterback going from Miami to Wisconsin. I know not guys get traded in the NFL, and you could go from the Dolphins to the Packers, or from the Seahawks to the Dolphins, or something like that. This is still very weird weird to see in college football. We've seen Miami teams react to cold weather before. We will see how a Miami quarterback reacts to cold weather this year. Finally, Tony, I'm skipping down a few down the list. No disrespect to the two guys between Tyler Van Dyke and Grayson McCall, but no one knows who they are, so it's okay. We're going to move on to Grayson McCall, longtime quarterback at Coastal Carolina. Tony, where is he headed?
He's not headed far. I believe he's headed to North Carolina State, Tom. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I have been studying up, not for this, but just because. So yes, North Carolina State to replace Devin, what's his face from last year or he went to Kentucky. See, the constant movement is ridiculous, but North Carolina State. And if Grayson McCall can get back to pre-Tim Beck era, and if he's not been too infected by the Tim Beckness of last year at Coastal, and really just free himself from that. You talk about the shackles of Brian Ferentz, the shackles and the taint, if you will, of Tim Beck is a lot for somebody to overcome.
It is a lot for somebody to overcome. No more Teal Field, but perhaps a bigger stage, and perhaps a more exciting offense. Well, probably not even more exciting offense, just a bigger stage. But that's okay. Hey, as we said earlier, someone from the SEC's got to make the playoff. Might as well be NC State. They've had some postseason success in other sports recently, postseason tournament success in other sports. We'll see if they can extend that to the football field. Yeah, Tony, I got to say, you did disappointingly well. I thought for sure this was going to be a real struggle, and I'm very disappointed to say that you probably didn't even need the freebies. You probably could have passed. You would have had a passing grade even without the freebies. So disappointingly well done. We'll try again later. We'll do a tight end transfer show later. I can't wait. That's gonna be great. Tony, there's still some time left in the offseason to ruin your year. We will see what we can do to make that happen later on this year on Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. You can also find us on the Buckeye Weekly podcast. Tony and I co-host that as well. Talked a bunch about some of the early college football magazine predictions, and broke some of those down earlier in the week. I have another show coming up for you a little later on this week as well, and have plenty for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. We're at our whole team of X's and O's gurus, and a really fun and active community on the Huddle Board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse. That's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Make sure you also check us out at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Got lots of content coming for you very soon. We got camp season opening up next week at Ohio State. Should be lots of official visits coming up. Lots of opportunity to scout some younger players. Lots of guys potentially earning offers from the Buckeyes. That's all coming up in June. Very, very busy June ahead. And then, boy, doesn't take long before we get into Big Ten Media Days. That's coming up in July. Very, very exciting stuff heading up and into what should be a fascinating season in the Big Ten and across the country, and especially in Columbus, Ohio. We hope you'll join us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle and BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.